pick up here?
Yes, okay, so now we've heard about the drivers. What are the actual benefits of continuous controls monitoring, and more importantly, across the different departments within an organization?
Well, if we start with management, kind of down for management, I think we said earlier, the benefits are eliminate the surprises and the visibility to information. In management, slightly different view of data than you would be from like a module owner or a process owner, but they still want that summary information available to them so they can make the appropriate decisions going forward. From a compliance perspective, I think it's simply you having a tool or set of tools to allow you to automate some of the things that you have had to do manually in the past. I think the same is true for the auditors as well. From an auditor, it's a little bit different. Auditors are there to test to confirm the controls management says are in place are actually performed and are effective. So in the terms of a continuous control solution, they can basically in real time more or less see the results to if the business owners state that users access to Oracle is approved, they can go through the CCM solution and determine which users were added over a period of time, then go back and make sure that user's access was approved, and to confirm that control was operating, it was in place and operating effectively as designed. And then from an operations team perspective, it's a slightly different. We do a lot of work in the supply chain area, and they want to make sure that the controls that they believe are in place are actually operating it as they thought they were. Adil, do you want to take this in more detail?
Yeah, Brian, actually, I have an interesting question that maybe you can help me address for the folks. One of the things that I get is the pushback from auditors, and you spend more time auditing in this world. So I'd love to hear your perspective when you were an external auditor or even an internal audit. There seems to be that independence issue that comes up when you talk about continuous controls monitoring. Well, who owns the control and who should do what? And I know we have some questions for the team later on to ask as well. But one of the challenges that I hear from our customers when they're thinking about buying a controls monitoring solution like ours is who's going to own it. And while auditors are proponents of that, they also have to maintain independence if they want external auditors to rely on their information. So having set that up for you, is a question for me, for you that I'd like to ask and learn from you is, what should people do when they're thinking about putting a business case together of benefits? I mean, should auditors own this solution, or where do you see this happening when you're involved in helping customers choose a solution like this?
That's the $1 million question, and it's a great question because every one of our customers struggles with that specific question. Where does ownership lie? And for that very reason, as Appssurance, we actually have a service line where we have a number of our customers that actually have outsourced or co-sourced their continuous controls monitoring solution to Appssurance. And the reason for that, and I'll get more into detail in a second, is simply because they can't find that group or that individual that isn't a control owner, isn't responsible for performing control, and or isn't responsible for auditing the control. So they don't know, they don't have that individual or group. So they said, okay, well, Appssurance, you're an independent third party. You're none of the above. You're not management. You're not a compliance. You're not auditor. You're not on operations. So therefore, let's leverage your expertise and kind of co-own this for us. So to start, the controls have to be owned by the business. Oftentimes, I think the misconception is that the audit staff kind of owns the controls, and as I stated earlier, right, that's simply the case. They can't. And their job as auditors is to make sure that the controls that the business process owners state are in place. The auditor's job is to test that those controls are operating effectively. So from that perspective, I think we can't, when there is a control failure, you can't blame the auditors. I mean, the auditor's job is to find the weaknesses within the control environment and to report it accordingly. Really, the ownership has to lie, and in my opinion, should always lie with the business process owners.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of, I think for those audiences that are looking at moving to a more streamlined way of monitoring their controls, I think that would be a good starting point. It's not just about the benefits that each of these silos receive, which they all do, as Brian, you said a few minutes ago, but it's also the ownership of, that capability. And sometimes, as you said, it may not be in-house. It may be something that, Brian, you'll have to step in and do that. And I love that answer about process owners taking. It's music to my ears. But the fact is, process owners are not always mature enough to take ownership of that, right? With all respect to process owners, they have a plate full of things. So what we find is many times they do need to bring in someone like Appssurance in to help them ease into that sustainable stage where the process owners can be given, their risk profile in a way that they can consume and understand, and I think that gives them a nice ramp up into the world of continuous controls monitoring. So if you think about benefits, I would say that take that advice from Brian about how to organize the ownership of this system also, because that'll drive you to a solution that is more sustainable long term.
Yeah, a couple other points I'll just add very quickly is one of the dilemmas there's two scenarios where our clients struggle with, more very specific. One is, they often ask, can the person who is managing security for us in Oracle, like our Oracle sysadmin, is it okay if they also kind of own, SafePaaS and the operations of SafePaaS? And I'm like, I wouldn't recommend it, simply because those that are proactively managing security within your Oracle environment shouldn't also be the one that then is monitoring that person's and other person's access. So you want an independent third party. The other thing is specific around, configuration controls. Is it okay then if, so I understand the sysadmin can't own this, but how about people who their only job is to manage, configure the power users? They can just manage configurations. And my answer is the same. Why would you want somebody who can manage the configurations within GL and AP and AR and purchasing also be the ones responsible for monitoring changes to those same parameters? And typically the light bulb goes, okay, I see your point.
Yeah, so there's a reliance issue there. Yeah.
So and then I just warn them, say, look, if you want to do that, ultimately that's up to you. But just understand, when audit comes in and sees how this is structured, they're going to have a problem with it. So we oftentimes will work and develop what we call a governance model, and we follow the RACI model, responsible. Where we
out of my mouth, I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So we clearly come up with it. And again, we have several clients on the call here where here are all the tasks that need to be in place to operate continuous controls monitoring solution, on a weekly, quarterly, annual basis. And then going across each task, we identify who's responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, so that there's clear ownership and delineation between the tasks that need to be performed, manual and otherwise, and then who's responsible for doing that.
Yeah, I would ask the folks on the call to take you up on that, because I think that's the only way to put a good business case together and bring ownership into the organization, because there's a lot of technology out there that you have an option to buy. That's the good news. But how you use it and how it creates benefit, I think that RACI matrix is how I've seen customers. The difference between success and failure, it boils down to how you allocate that accountability within the organization.
And one of the things, make sure
talk a little bit about an example. Go ahead, let you close.
My only guidance, and you can go on, is just make sure that in those conversations, that when you develop your RACI model, the governance model, that you're including your procurement, more of the operations folks, manufacturing folks, procurement folks, because again, they do have operational risks that they want to make sure that is addressed in this endeavor.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm guilty of that. I often overlook, when I'm doing a business justification, I often overlook those downstream areas of business, and they're not in in the conference room or in today Zoom meeting or whatever we have. But right. But they get left out, but they bring a lot of contribution to these areas where they're not that close to the financial statement risk, so we kind of don't pay that much attention. But folks in supply chain are becoming much more important. Customer service is tremendously
exactly
important.
right.
So I think that's something that maybe consider as an added benefit given the circumstances we have right now.